Oh, is that you, Mandy? The moment I heard that voice, memories of my hellish married life surged back. And I turned around with goosebumps. Standing there was my smirking ex-husband, with a young woman clinging to his arm. The very person who made my first marriage a living hell is now standing right in front of me. Who would have thought we'd meet here? It's been a while, hasn't it? Huh? The ex-wife? Nice to meet you. The young woman next to him greeted me in a high-pitched voice. My ex-husband had his arm around her. You see, this is my current wife. Young and cute, huh? You are nothing compared to her. As I tried to leave, he stopped me and looked me over. Look at you, an old, unemployed, and poor single woman. You're living a miserable life because you couldn't serve me properly. Serves you right. Hey, that's a bit much. But it's true though. I was seething inside. I had to say something. Turning back to them, I asked quietly. Hey, who exactly are you talking about? My name is Mandy Thompson. I've been married to Ben for 2 years. In fact, I was married once before I met my current husband. That marriage was so tragic that I don't even want to remember it. The man I first married was named Steve Owen. We met at a small company where I started working as a fresh graduate. Steve, who was in charge of training me, seemed manly and dependable. Having had little experience in love, I was thrilled when he asked me out. And I quickly agreed to date him. However, Steve had always been somewhat tyrannical. He would get moody when I talked to other male employees, or would behave arrogantly towards restaurant staff. But love was blind. After 2 years of dating, he proposed, and I agreed to marry him. Steve strongly wished that I become a housewife, so I did just that upon our marriage. Once married, I realized that his manly character was just domineering. Now that you're a housewife, do the household chores perfectly. That's your job. He never helped with the housework. No matter how hard I tried, he never appreciated my efforts. Instead, he was always nitpicking how I managed the household chores and finances. Still, I kept doing my best, grateful to be allowed to stay home. 3 months into our marriage, during winter, I came down with a severe cold. Feeling ill since morning, I checked my temperature, over 100 degrees. Chills and dizziness made it impossible to do any housework. When Steve returned from work and saw me wrapped in a blanket, he visibly grimaced. Hi, Mandy. What are you doing lying down? Steve. I think I caught a cold. My temperature is over 100 degrees. Despite my explanation, he frantically looked around the house and scowled. Hey. You haven't done the cleaning or the laundry. I've been feeling ill since the morning, I really couldn't do it. Don't spout such lazy excuses, you're just a housewife. He shouted and then yanked away my blanket. You haven't even prepared my dinner. Make it now. But I told you, I have a high fever. I can't possibly cook. Tears filled my eyes as I pleaded. But Steve didn't care and forced me to get up, then shoved a $10 bill at me. Then, go buy something with this now. What? Don't buy anything for yourself. You skip dinner as a punishment for slacking off. Just buy mine, now. Steve dragged me to the entrance while I was staggering and then threw me out of the house. In the freezing cold, in my pajamas outside. It seemed I wouldn't be let back in until I brought something back. After managing to buy groceries, I collapsed right at the entrance upon returning. Steve glanced at me briefly, snatched the ready-made food by his side, and began eating silently while watching TV. As I lay collapsed in the cold entrance, I heard Steve's laughter from afar, and a tear rolled down my cheek. Yet, I hadn't considered divorce because I didn't want to betray my father, who had been delighted by my marriage. My mother passed away from illness when I was in middle school, and since then, it had always been just my father and me. My father was running a stationery shop and we weren't wealthy. But I had a happy life with my kind father who loved me deeply. When I got married, he said with tears, "Now I can finally rest easy. Be happy." If I divorced within just 6 months of marriage, it would betray my kind father. I thought I just needed to endure it for myself. Steve's domineering behavior continued. I managed to endure it, exhausting myself through the days of our marriage. About a year into our marriage, bad news arrived. My father was hospitalized with advanced cancer. Dad. I had no idea things had gotten this bad. My father had lost a lot of weight during the short time I hadn't seen him.
Yeah.
I realized too late. They say there's nothing they can do now. As he spoke quietly, I cried. My father gently wiped away my tears and asked, "Mandy, are you happy in your marriage?" I lied instinctively. I didn't want to make him worried about me on his sickbed.
Yeah.
I'm happy. Steve has been very good to me. Is that so? Well, that's good then. Looking back, maybe my father sensed something then. However, he said nothing more. With the added need to care for my father, life became even harder. Until then, I had spent all my time during the day managing the detailed housework that Steve demanded. But with the nursing of my father, that became difficult. Amidst this life, I asked Steve, "Steve, I have a favor to ask. Could you please visit my father in the hospital?" "Huh? Why should I?" Steve grimaced as he looked at me. "Well, you are his son-in-law after all. I'm sure my father would be happy to see your face." "What are you talking about?" "I don't want to see the face of a dying old man." I stared at Steve in disbelief as he continued, oblivious to my shock. "More importantly, don't slack on the housework because you're nursing the old man. Think well about what to prioritize." With that, he left grumpily for the bathroom. Later, as my father's condition worsened and I spent more time in the hospital, Steve, far from supporting me, berated me daily for not doing the housework. On the day of my father's surgery, when I told him I would be away all day, Steve exploded. "Hey, don't mess around. What do you think a wife's job is?" "But it's my father's surgery day." "So? What about my meal? The cleaning? The laundry? Can't you manage for one day?" As I mustered the courage to say this, Steve sighed dramatically and pulled something out of his bag. It was a signed divorce form. A divorce form. "Yes, that's right. I'm supporting you, but if you can't even manage the housework, it's a divorce." "But, it's about my father. I'm the only family he has. I don't care. If you're saying you won't do the housework because you're accompanying him to surgery, then it's an immediate divorce. Just think well." Steve left these words behind and went off to work. I was stunned, staring at the divorce form on the table. But I had no choice but to accompany my father to surgery. After the surgery, as my father woke up, I was crying by his bedside. "Dad, are you awake?" As I hurriedly wiped my tears, my father spoke quietly to me. "You're really struggling with your married life, aren't you?" "It's okay, I kind of knew." "Dad. I'm sorry. I might get a divorce. Even though you were so happy about my marriage, I'm really sorry." I sobbed like a little child and told him everything. My father listened, nodding, and then he said, "Mandy, there's something I've never told you before. Actually, I was stunned by the shocking content of his words. When I returned home, Steve was waiting, looking furious. Hey. You skipped housework to go to the hospital, didn't you? Yes. Then it's a divorce. Hurry up and sign the divorce form. Steve forced me to sit at the dining table and to write the divorce form. I quietly asked him, "Are you really going to abandon me? Me, who is stressed out from taking care of my father?" "Yes, that's right. I don't care if the old man dies and you're left all alone. I'll gladly get rid of a defective wife like you." I silently signed the divorce form and left the house on that day. As I stood at the entrance with my belongings, Steve said dismissively, "Goodbye. Never show your face here again, damn wife." Soon after, I returned to my family home to continue caring for my father. However, 3 months later, my father passed away. After the funeral, when things had settled down a bit, a lawyer came to visit me. "I've come regarding your father's estate." I remembered what my father had said on the day of the surgery. "Mandy, I've been hiding this. But I've been trading stocks and cryptocurrencies for about 10 years. "What? Dad, why are you bringing this up now? With that, there's a substantial amount of money. When I pass away, it will all be yours. So don't worry about living after the divorce. Go ahead and leave him and live your life. Dad, all I want is for you to be happy. Please, don't make the wrong choice." Knowing this allowed me to decide to get a divorce. However, when I heard the amount of the inheritance from the lawyer, I was floored. Excluding taxes, I would have $3 million left. There were also several properties. My father, who had run a small stationery shop, had a talent for making money. I followed the lawyer's instructions and gratefully accepted the inheritance from my father. Later, when I had trouble with property management, I met my current husband, Ben. Born into a family of landlords, he easily solved my problems. Later, Ben proposed a relationship with marriage in mind, and I decided to remarry. Attracted by his competence and kind nature, I now have a happy life. I hope to continue living a peaceful life with the person I love. But just when I thought that, I ended up having a nightmare reunion at a real estate office I was visiting for business. I encountered my ex-husband, Steve. "Oh? Is that you, Mandy?" The moment I heard that voice, memories of my hellish married life surged back. And I turned around with goosebumps. Standing there was my smirking ex-husband, Steve, with a young woman clinging to his arm. Who would have thought we'd meet here? It's been a while, hasn't it? Huh? Steve's ex-wife? Nice to meet you. The young woman next to him greeted me in a high-pitched voice. My ex-husband had his arm around her. "You see, this is my current wife, Kelly. Young and cute, huh? You are nothing compared to her." Faced with such an introduction by Steve, I informed him emotionlessly. "I have some errands to run, so I will be leaving soon." Hey, is that your attitude after running into your ex-husband by chance? Can't you at least make small talk? As I remained silent, Steve looked me over from head to toe. "You're all dressed up, but what are you doing at a real estate agency? You must be looking for some rundown apartment to live in alone, huh? That's none of your business." Then Kelly noticed the bag I was carrying. "Huh? This person is carrying a super expensive bag? Steve, didn't you say your ex-wife is unemployed?" "Silly Kelly, it must be a fake. It's just a poor person's pretense." "Is that so? Oh my, how shameful." Kelly laughed joyfully, and Steve smiled at her. Seeing in disgust their faces, he turned back to me and said disdainfully, "What? Are you jealous?" A poor, unemployed single woman at your age. You're living a miserable life because you couldn't serve me properly. Serves you right. Hey, Steve, that's too much. But well, it's true. I was furious inside. I had to say something. Turning back to them, I asked quietly. Hey, you, who exactly are you talking about? Huh? Just then, an executive from the real estate company approached me. Ms. Thompson, I apologize for the wait. I understand you wanted to discuss the matter regarding the condo you own. I responded politely to the executive. Yes, thank you for your assistance. But before we talk, may I have a moment? I ran into an acquaintance. Of course. I'll be waiting. Steve and Kelly watched the exchange between the executive and me with dumbfounded expressions. What? Owns a condo? He finally broke his silence, and I replied to him with a sigh. Yes. I currently own several properties. And I'm here today to discuss some contracts. Huh? Real estate? You? As he struggled to grasp the situation, I enlightened him. The father you ridiculed had made millions in stocks and owned several properties. I inherited all of that. What? You kept the inheritance a secret from me. You were the one who ridiculed and abandoned my father and me, right? Steve stammered and his face changed colors rapidly. Eventually, he began to beg. Mandy. I'm sorry about that time. I'll break up with her, so please marry me again. Huh? Wait a minute, Steve. Kelly looked at him with a shocked expression. As I looked down at him expressionlessly, Steve pleaded. Actually, my company is going under, and I'm in trouble with money. What? I didn't know about that. Shut up. You be quiet. Mandy, please, we were once married, right? Just as Steve was reaching out towards me, a stern voice rang out. Please do not touch my wife. What is this about? Who are you? There stood Ben, my current husband, who had arrived a bit late. He put his arm around my shoulder and glared at Steve. Tall and dressed in a well-tailored suit, Ben exuded an aura of wealth. Steve shrank back and muttered. Wife. Mandy, you remarried? Yes, I've been remarried for a while. To a man with better financial stability and character than you. No way, how can that be? Steve looked momentarily devastated, but then he started to say something outrageous. Then, Mandy, lend me some money. No, give me some. Just $10,000 would be fine, you're rich, right? To him, I shouted back. After the way you treated me, who would give you money? Don't ever show me that pathetic face again. Get out of here with that woman right now. Startled by my shouting, Steve realized he couldn't get any money from me. He then reached out to Kelly and spoke softly. Kelly, shall we go? Don't touch me. Kelly lashed out at the crestfallen Steve. I can't believe you kept quiet about your company going under. You were just after my father's money, weren't you? No, it's not like that. Believe me, I love you, Kelly. You just said you'd divorce me. Stop making a fool of me. Fine, I'll divorce you myself. Be prepared for that. I'll contact you through a lawyer. Kelly stormed off immediately after dropping those words. Apparently, she was from a well-off family. Left behind, Steve stood in stunned silence. At that moment, I couldn't resist whispering in his ear. Unemployed, poor, single man, serves you right. As Steve crumbled to his knees, Ben and I left the scene. I heard through the grapevine that Steve and Kelly did indeed divorce. Kelly's family owned a construction company. And her enraged parents threw Steve out penniless, who had been almost like a son-in-law. Later, Steve somehow managed to move into a rundown apartment. And now he spends his days laboring, alone and tirelessly. I will never forgive him. Even now, I don't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for him. Meanwhile, Ben and I continue to live a peaceful life. My father, who saved me from a desperate situation, and Ben, who taught me what true happiness is. I am forever grateful to them. Recently, I found out I'm pregnant. Ben is looking forward to the arrival of our child. I want to continue walking this happy path with my new family.